What's up, everyone? Thrash Metal here once again. I'm the Neck, and I'm going to do some more underrated albums. Figured since the whole world seems to have a lot of downtime here, might as well get around to making some more videos that don't necessarily involve me going out and purchasing new music, which I'm still going to find a way to do that. But for now, this is kind of fun. So we're switching gears from death metal to thrash metal. This is the next one I had kind of lined up before, and decided to get back to it even though I went through and really expanded it. I was just going to go with 90s stuff, but I decided to at least take on the late 80s because there was a lot of cool stuff there, and that's where thrash really started to blow up as a giant scene, a giant movement. And thrash is my first love. Like, that's what really got me into metal, so going over some underground thrash stuff, always a good time. So let's just get right into this. Corrosion of Conformity, Animosity. This is probably one of the more well-known ones on here. This is their second album, came out in 1985. Now, they started off as more of a punk band. Eye for an Eye was definitely more of a punk album than a metal album. This is where they really shifted gears and went into crossover thrash. The riffing stood out more. I think there was a lot more tenacity to it. They kind of took all that bottled up punk energy and just kind of threw it in with some metal riffs and really just made an awesome album. This was probably the best album they did in terms of their thrash metal years. Now, obviously they shifted gears, went to more groove metal, sludge metal, even some kind of alternative stuff, and definitely became more well-known for that. So these albums are definitely more underground for sure. But if you've never heard the early years of COC, it's really great stuff. Definitely check this stuff out. This is where the band really got started, and granted, they don't sound anything like this anymore. This is a fun trip down memory lane when crossover thrash was a budding scene itself. So yeah, definitely check this out. Assassin, The Upcoming Terror, 1987. Now this is a reissue, Chronicles of Resistance. This has both of their first two albums reissued. The one I'm talking about is this one. Nice big tank on the cover, spiky logo. These guys were a German thrash band, and this was their debut album, and it's a fucking ripper. It's very much like the thrash scene that came out of Germany. It was much faster, much more aggressive, I think, than the American scene at the time. Just flat out nasty bands, and these guys were a great addition to them. They weren't quite inside that big four or big three they had in Germany, but they were really good. Now, the debut album I think is really good. The follow-up, not as good, and then they kind of had some issues along the way. They broke up in 1989, then reformed, and kind of had some rough goes in terms of putting out quality material, at least. And I think just the short career kind of hampered them a little bit. They are still around, still put on music. I think one just came out this year. So if you've never heard Assassin, definitely check them out. It's a pretty solid band, especially The Upcoming Terror, though. This is a really killer album. Check it out. Powerlord The Awakening. This is a thrash metal / speed metal band from Oklahoma City. They formed in 84, this came out in 86, and this is the lone studio release. In fact, this is the only reissue that came out on CD on Shadow Kingdom Records. It's really just high energy thrash / speed metal. The vocals range from screams to actual singing, so somewhere between, like, you know, Dark Angel and then Flotsam and Jetsam. Not a lot is really known about this band. It's really unclear even when they broke up. I know the drummer actually was the drummer on the first Dark Angel album, I believe, before Gene Hoglan came in and just fucking wrecked shit. And I believe their drummer also did one live show as Slayer's replacement drummer. Outside of that, not much is really known about this band, and again, like I said, this is the only release. But it's a really good one, and it's just straightforward, high-energy thrash metal / speed metal. Kind of walk that line. Definitely check it out. It's a fun little underground gem. Excel, Split Image. This was their debut album from 1987. The band is from Venice, California, and they were another crossover thrash band that sort of emerged after, you know, bands like Suicidal Tendencies and Stormtroopers of Death really started getting some steam. Very punky, very fast, really short songs, lots of high energy stuff. It's pretty much everything you expect from crossover thrash. Now, they have 3 albums. The other 2 aren't as good. At least the other one I have isn't, which is the second one. It was maybe better recorded, but I think the songs, they kind of experimented a bit with groove metal, maybe alienated their fan base a bit. They moved a little bit away from the crossover thrash stuff. And then the last album they put out, I've never actually heard, and it's kind of hard to find. But this band just kind of fell apart over time. They had a lot of issues with lineup changes, eventually ended up breaking up in 1998, and then have since reformed and are saying they're going to put out new music. I don't even know who's all in the band anymore. I forgot to really check, but there's probably still some original members in it. But yeah, if you're looking for some classic, kind of off the beaten path crossover thrash, definitely check this out. It's a fun listen. Mortal Sin, Mayhemic Destruction. This is arguably Australia's most famous thrash metal band. This is their debut album, and these guys flat out sounded like early Metallica, especially around like Ride the Lightning and maybe Master of Puppets. Excellent songwriting here, really well written songs, big hooks, lots of melody. These guys also kind of had a rough history. They put out 2 more albums after this, then broke up in 1992, then reformed and broke up a couple more times, and then officially split not too long ago. They just really never matched the overall quality of this first album, in my opinion. I have the follow-up to this album, which I thought was okay. It was nowhere near as cool as this one. And I gotta say, this album cover is absolutely banging. What a way to incorporate your country in your album cover. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, definitely check it out. It's a cool thrash gem, and if you like early Metallica, there's a good chance you'll probably really like this. Prong, Primitive Origins. This is Prong's first real release, their original EP, and before they kind of broke it big into more groove metal / industrial metal, whatever the hell you want to call them, alternative metal, they were a crossover thrash band. In fact, the full-length Force Fed that came after this was also very much crossover, but I picked this one because it's a little bit more obscure, and this one is way more raw. It is almost a hardcore album, but there's enough thrashy riffs on here where it's definitely under the crossover banner. I really love this one. The songwriting is definitely a little bit more simple, but I like the high energy on it. And this album is definitely overlooked when you consider, all their more popular albums. I don't know many people that even really talk about this one very much. I think it's awesome. Definitely check it out if you're just looking for something raw and fucking hardcore-ish and in your face. It's a good time. Blind Illusion, The Sane Asylum. This came out in 1988, and the band broke up 1 year after that, even though the band had been around since 1978 before that. Now, this one is a pretty interesting little note in history because this is some of the early stuff from Les Claypool and Larry Lalonde from Primus. In fact, they were working on Primus stuff while they were in this band. Now, Larry Lalonde is just on here for guitar tracks on, I think, 4 or 5 tracks, but the bass work is entirely done by Les Claypool. And you can really hear his token style just coming through, but in a technical, progressive thrash band, which is probably the only kind of thrash I think he could fit in because his style is so him. I don't even know else how to describe it. He's just amazing. I mean, the songwriting here is really interesting. I really dig the technical prowess of this band, and it's just honestly really cool to hear the bass work come out in this, especially since it's Les, and it really is pronounced in the mix. Definitely check it out. It's a fun little note in history in terms of thrash metal and just, Les Claypool. Check it out. It's good stuff. Numbskull, Ritually Abused. This is a thrash metal / death thrash band from Illinois. This came out in 1988, and this is just super aggressive death thrash. Like, it's very similar to Possessed or like Slayer circa Hell Awaits. It just has a real nasty overall feel. The songs are very fast and do kind of border on death metal a little bit. Now, these guys were also short-lived. They broke up in 91. In fact, there was an album they recorded that was never released during this time, and they've broken up and reunited multiple times, and I believe they finally are pretty much just completely done. But as a standalone album, this is an absolute ripper. If you like your thrash just fast and out of control and bordering on death metal, this is an absolute banger. Check it out. EvilDead, Annihilation of Civilization. These guys formed in LA in 1986. This is their first album, came out in 1989. And this is just straightforward thrash metal with a snide sense of humor about the end of the world and corporations and all that fun shit. I really dig the lightheartedness on here, but then these guys pack a ton of riffs. Now, they only have one other album, which I own, and not as good as this one. The follow-up was a little bit weaker, I'd say. And this band ended up breaking up in 1995, then reforming in 2008, to 2012, broke up again, reformed in 2016, and apparently they are still around, and they are listed as active and said that they're planning on playing shows still. I mean, up until, coronavirus outbreak or whatever. I don't know if they had any planned, but yeah, probably not going to happen now. But yeah, this is just a fun little, just thrashy gem. It's very straightforward, kind of almost Bay Area kind of thrash, but again, from LA. Definitely check it out. It's a good time. Their other album's okay, but this is the real gem right here. Check it out. And finally we have Forced Entry, Uncertain Future. This is a thrash three-piece from Seattle, Washington. These guys formed in 1986. This is their debut full-length that came out in 1989, and it is, I would say, technical thrash. These guys were only a three-piece. They played a very raw style of thrash. It was very technical, very riffy. I really liked how angular the riffs were. Like, this had really interesting, almost kind of progressive leanings, but it was always intense. It was always just in your face, and I really dug that about this album. And I'll probably bring them up in another one of these in terms of underground ones, because there's one other release I thought was really good. But yeah, the band ended up breaking up in 1995. They put out one last EP, which is included on here, and I'll be honest, it's not very good. They kind of bucked to the trends and became more of a groove metal band, and didn't really suit them. But their two full lengths are solid, and I strongly recommend this one. Their debut is just packed full of awesome music. Check this shit out, it's good stuff. Alright, well that kicks off at least the thrash underrated albums. I might move in the 90s next, or just do another one in the 80s, because I have enough albums on the list to actually do a second one of these, or I might just come back to it later. Either way, I plan on doing more, because this is a great way to kill the time while we're all holed up in our houses. So, yeah. So, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because if you subscribe, you are entered in our giveaway for a Cryptopsy hoodie once we hit 1,000 subs. We're going to do a little sub randomizer thing, and one of you lucky people are going to get one. So, that should be incentive to sub right there. With that, I thank you guys very much for watching, and I thank everyone that has subbed so far. We love you, and we will catch you later.